Hey, what's happening out there? In this video, I want to show you the 14 new features and tools of Adobe Photoshop CC 2019. Let's get started. So first up on our list is the Frame tool for easy masking. Now the Frame tool is a new tool altogether in the Photoshop library on the left-hand side. You can access it by going to this little kind of area that has this little X in a box, and you can also hit the K key on your keyboard. So if I hit K, I get the Frame tool. Now it's brand new, so you can only draw a rectangle or a circle / ellipse in your design. I'm going to use a rectangle for right now. I'm going to draw it right down here. As you can see, nothing's in this box, but I'm going to bring in another picture. If I have this image right up here on the top, I'm going to copy it and paste it into my design. It does says a profile mismatch. That is totally fine. And that picture comes in. Now, all I have to do is drag layer 1 into frame 1, and voila, that picture is now inside the frame. Now, if you look at it, I can move my frame anywhere on the screen that I want to have it as, and I can also work on the properties by having a stroke inside, center, or outside. I'm going to say no center or no stroke. So all I have is just this picture right here. And I can also, if I wanted to just adjust the picture, it is naturally a smart object at a PSB file. So I can actually make this picture smaller. Option key, if I hold it down properly, oops, one more time. There we go, Option key. Now I can scale my picture down and frame this picture. Let me move it over here, over here. I can put this picture anywhere on my document and it stays inside the frame. So that is one of the newest tools of Photoshop, utilizing the Frame tool. So this next tool isn't really new, but as Adobe says, it is reimagined. I love that kind of word, reimagined. So this is what it is. It is the Content Aware Fill. So I'm going to use my lasso tool, and I want to take out this tree in the background because I just want as best horizon as I possibly can. I'm going to zoom in and draw a little mask, or a little selection rather, around this tree. I want to make sure that I get the bottom part a little bit around it so there's some negative space around this tree to take out. Now using the Content Aware Fill, I'm going to say Edit Content Aware Fill. And what it does, using Adobe Sensei, it kind of predicts what it's going to look like. Now, when I ran this before, it kind of cracked me up because it almost took away too much, I thought at first, where I was looking like, oh wait, there's no palm trees in the scene. Then I realized that it's just showing me a preview of this green box so I can see where it is and where it is not. Now you can also mask out certain things. By default, this is almost like refined edges in a way, where if I, come on, am I in symmetry mode? Nope. Like a mask area, I can take it out and hold the Option key to bring it back in. This is where if you didn't quite get the selection perfect, you can refine it. But overall, the Sensei, or Adobe's back-end magical mystery man, looks pretty good. So I'm going to say OK. And voila. Just like magic, that picture is pretty much gone. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not 100%. I do a little more adjusting going on, but in the matter of 30 seconds, 1 minute since I've been talking to you, it's gone. That is pretty darn remarkable. And so I love how it shows me the preview before I'm locked in, and it also just made a layer. So if I said removal of tree right there, now I can have it where it's there and there it's not. So this is what I like about this part is in Photoshop, this is really adding to the non-destructiveness nature of the software, where in the past you would have this being a detrimental effect to your design. Now you can remove it or not remove it based upon the layer and using Edit Content Aware Fill. And now, begrudgingly, the new multiple undo mode. Now, if we go up to Edit, they've actually changed things. And this is one, I'm using Photoshop now going on 26 years. And they've had the same shortcut key for 26 years. You can hear my anger in my voice, but you know what? They changed it. This is what's going to happen. They used to have a step undo tool, and it was Command Option Z. And they've changed it to now where the Z key is true undo, step back, step back, step back, and step back. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to pull up the history. And if you've never used it, well, you're not alone, because most people do not use this history. But this shows me what I've done since I've been, well, making this video. Started opening it, lasso, content aware from the previous example, and now I'm down to this name change where I changed to removal of tree. If I want to step back, it used to be Command Option Z would step you back and step you back. But here it is now as really being the unofficial undo. So if I hit Command Option Z, it toggles between the last step. That used to be the way the undo worked inside of Photoshop, but they flipped it around. And if you're like me, who has used Photoshop now for going on 3 decades, it's almost more of a brain twist to get right. So what I'm going to do is Command Options, see, I even did it verbally on my Q command. Command Z, I'm on the Macintosh, and now it's like stepping back. Now here's the thing. If you step back or if you undo multiple times, even I'm having a hard time explaining this perfectly, but the Command Z is like stepping backwards. Command Shift Z is like stepping forwards. So once again, if you want to see the last 2 changes, this is Command Option, see, I'm even doing it again. Command Option Z, oh no, I can't do it correctly. See, even I'm getting lost on the verbal cues. So Command Z is to step backwards essentially with multiple undos. Command Shift Z steps forward or to undo forward. This is a brand new change in Adobe Photoshop CC 2019. So moving into the type area. So now if we want to type in, we can just click T for type. And we'll say, hello, world. Apparently I'm in still Helvetica Konoya. Let's make the type bigger. This is not part of the new features. I just realized that my type was too small when I made this. And let's say hello, world. And for the sake of type, we're going to make it black so you can read it on the screen a lot easier. All right. So now that we have type on the screen, let's show you some of the new features of type. If I want to edit this type, in the past, if I was in the Move tool or the V key, I'd have to go down to T for type and select the type. And if I want to get off of the type, I'd essentially have to hit Command Enter. It's a little funky because on keyboards, the return key, if we look at it again, would just drop down. So in order to lock the type in place, I had to hit the Command Return, and that still works. However, if you're on extended keyboard like I am, if you hit the Enter key, which is down to the bottom right, the Enter key now locks type in. But wait, there's more. What you can do now is, instead of going down to the type key, I can double click the type and say, hello world. And when I hit that Enter key or Command Return, it now locks the type in place and automatically drops me back to the Move tool. So once again, if you see it, notice I'm not clicking T for type down here. I'm using the Move tool, but if I double click, I can now edit type and it auto selects the type for me. This is how I can then change the color to a bright red and Enter key locks it in. That is a new way of adjusting and selecting type in Adobe Photoshop CC 2019. You might have heard my begrudgingness when it came to, in the past, the step undo changing to the undo. I had to unlearn a keystroke, and in Photoshop, everything is about keystrokes. Well, they did it to us again, and this is not the best thing in the world because, once again, for 20-something years, and maybe this doesn't go back that far, but for, let's just say, 15 years, I've used the same keystroke, and that is to transform the size of something. Now, if I hit Command T, that's not changed. Transform has always been the same keystroke. However, we were kind of trained to hold the Shift key down while we scale to hold things in proportion. Now, you do not hold down the Shift key. I don't know how to show my keystrokes, but I am not holding, you know what? I do know how to show my keystrokes. Maybe, I think I have it up here. There we go. Show keyboard viewer. That's what I was thinking of. Oh, look at this amazing looking keyboard. So there it is. There's my keyboard. So if I want to click and drag this, in the past, I'd have to hold down my Shift key and drag it. No longer is the case. Now it scales by default back and forth. This one took me about 3 weeks to get used to because I just always kept holding the Shift key. Now the Shift key says, do not scale to proportion. Also, never stretch your type. This is the graphic designer in me coming out. So what I want to do is then I have to hit the Escape key, Command T, and come back. Oops, I did it again. See, I want to scale this by holding the Shift key. It's almost a natural instinct. Now, the thing is that kind of bothers me as well, that if I want to scale from the middle, it's still, this is the same, that I hold the Option key down to scale from the middle, but not the Shift key. And once again, that drives me a little bonkers because it's almost like I have a natural reactionary keystroke method of Option Shift to scale from the center. Now it's just Option without the Shift key to scale proportionally. And of course, the same as you hit the Enter key to lock it into position. And that is a new function. They've changed it around. So when you scale, it's not holding the Shift key any longer in the new version of Photoshop. This one's small, but if you're using any kind of mobile tablet device, this one might be an important step for you. I always use Photoshop entirely on my MacBook Pro. I have a iPad Air 2, and it works pretty good, but I've just found I really get used to having a keyboard and a mouse, and I just can't get used to using it on an iPad just yet. Call me old school, that's the way it goes. Anyways, back to the new features. Under Window and Workspace, they have this new piece called Lock Workspace. What that does is ensure your workspace doesn't move around. So I cannot grab any, I can click, but I cannot click and drag. I cannot click off. I cannot pass go. Everything is locked down. I cannot move anything around. Now, if I turn off the Lock Workspace, then I can grab my paragraph and move it over here. But Window, Workspace, Lock Workspace means that that paragraph, while it's moving here, if I put it back in, now I cannot get it out. It is locked in, and that's where it is. So if you have a certain workspace that you like, and you just don't want to have the hassle of moving things around, you can lock things into place and they'll also move around, or I should say not move around, on your other workspaces on your tablet devices. So once again, Window, Workspace, and Lock Workspace is a new feature in Photoshop CC 2019. All right, and by the way, I think we can remove the hello world. That's been good for right now, but it needs to go away. Now, if you're noticing now in this version, I have this kind of purple to orange, blue to orange gradient. Why do I have it? to show you something that I actually really love, that I think has been overdue. That there are these things called blending modes right here. Let me go to layer 1 so I can use them properly. And now watch what happens. And this is brand new. These blending modes are live. They happen on the fly. So what happens is you can see how the different blending modes work in relationship to this layer. Now I did pick multiple colors so I could show you that it's on the fly changing depending upon overlay, soft light, hard light. So you can cycle through these and get a feel for how it should look or what you want it to do. Now, if you know how to use these and it's almost like second nature, then it is a little bit of a moot point. But I find a lot of times if I just don't know if I want soft light, hard light, or vivid light, I now can change things nice and rapidly and say, you know what, before I commit to something like soft light, I can then go, you know what, I want hard light in here. So these blending modes are now live. They happen in real time, which is really cool. And of course, just like always, if I move it around, this is like a case of sunglass coolness going on here. That it changes on the fly, of course, as you move your layer around in Photoshop. But the blend modes are now live and active, and this is actually a really cool piece to the software, which I wish they would have added years ago. All right, this one's now buried inside the brush tool, and it is the Symmetry mode for painting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this layer 1 because, well, I don't need to have it. And I'll create a new layer, and I'll call it Symmetry. Did I spell it right? Symmetry. Symmetry painting on this layer right here. And B for brush is what I'm going to click on. And now in the top of the screen up here has this little butterfly that says set symmetry options for painting. I can choose vertical, horizontal, dual axis, diagonal, wavy, circle, spiral, parallel lens, radial, and the mandala. These areas down here, radial and mandala, have additional menus. So if you look at it, you can say segment count 3, 4, 5. So anytime, once again, that you see a couple dots in Photoshop, that means that there's an additional menu. For sake of easiness and not so many headaches, because I am not an artist, relatively speaking, I am a Photoshop expert that works a lot with photo manipulation, but in terms of drawing, I wish I could do as well as some of these amazing other YouTubers out there. Let's click horizontal. And what you can do is you can move your horizontal bar around, and from our previous design, I can also hold Option key to extend from the center, or I'm just going to extend out to just say, where is my line going to be? I might want it up here, for example. I might want it down here. It doesn't have to be right in the middle of the screen. I'm going to move this bar up here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting. Oh, check it out. I can also put a dot here, dot here, dot here. And notice now that the symmetry works right there. If I want to paint something else, I can do a diagonal line and move it over here. And now I'm going to start painting over on this side and say, hello, smile, dot, dot. So just like you can paint anywhere in Photoshop, the same brush tools still apply. You can now have it as a symmetry painting. You can also have a dual axis. I could scale this. Once again, it scales proportionally, which, just so you know, what I can also do then is hold the Shift key and scale non-proportionally. So if I put it right here, now what happens is it goes, well, off the screen because I went too far in that direction. However, if I want to make a square, I'm going to draw that way and then draw that way. And there's my kind of round rectangle square based upon the symmetry areas of drawing. So this is all my really cool paintings of my red paint. But what you're seeing is the ability to draw in a symmetrical fashion. And that is a brand new feature in Photoshop CC 2019. I know, pace yourself, those drawings in the last example were just utterly amazing. So what if we wanted to change colors? Now by default, the color area is not changed. It's still this typical hue saturation as I move it up and down on the screen. But there's something brand new. If I go into color, and if you don't have your color up on the screen, I think I'm still locked, so I can't move it. So if I go to Window and choose Color, if you do have an extended keyboard, it is still F6. That has not changed. What has changed is the color wheel has now been added. The color wheel looks like this. So I can move my color around this wheel. And what it shows is it says, okay, how much saturation do I want? How much less do I want? How much brightness is in this different triangle? So I can add different shades of blue if I wanted to by having it right here and by saying full on brightness or basically no saturation. I just want white. So you can use this color wheel in addition to the hue, saturation, and brightness. And if you click your background color, you then can set that to whatever color you want as well. So if I want blue and orange, and it does give me a gamut warning if I fall within the outside of the CMYK spectrum. I'm working in RGB, so I don't need to worry about this at all, but if so, it'll show you that towards the end, this color does not fit to the CMYK printing spectrum. But this is a brand new element inside of Photoshop, the color wheel. So I drew these three boxes, and what I want to have now is them to be distributed evenly between all three. Right now there's a little space between these two and a lot between here. Now I can grab this middle one. I can always hold the Command key and click, and it does allow me to eventually put it right in the middle in this way. However, moving it manually means I can mess it up. What if there's a way to then move all three so you then distribute them evenly across all pieces? I'm going to select all these three layers, and up at the top, I now have the ability to distribute horizontally. Poof! Just like that. Absolute magic. This is much like the distribute factor in Adobe Illustrator, now brought into Adobe Photoshop. It also works on more than three, so if I had a lot of them, that's almost too many, I think. Let's just do one more. So now I have a lot to distribute. This is not a very well executed plan. But now if I select all four and distribute, just like that, magic happens. And of course, when you have horizontal, you also have vertical. So if I had a few where I select 1, 2, and 3, now if I select this one, and this one, I now can say distribute vertically, and poof, magic happens. So this is a new tool in Adobe Photoshop to distribute both vertically and horizontally. You can now do math inside of Photoshop. Let me show you. If I open my image size up and it's 5,243 pixels, I want to make this half the size. In the past, just so I didn't mess up my numbers, I just hit % and say 50%, and it would drop to 50%. What you can now do is in pixels, if I Option key reset this, if I type /2, hit the Tab key, it doesn't like me. That's because if you notice it, that the original number, which I was laughing over, I'm like, why didn't it work? Oh, wait. 5,243 divided by 2 will not equal a whole number. And so an integer between 1,000 and 3,000 is required, closest value inserted. So this will scale down to the closest number at 50%. And because I've locked in this little piece right here. So this is where if you want to go dividing, if you want to multiply, so I want to make this 3 times bigger, I can do just that. Once again, I do not recommend making it larger than the original size, but you can multiply, and of course you can always add numbers with +50 is that number. So you can do all the normal numbers. So if I want to take off minus 62 pixels, hit the tab key, it does the math and locks it in. And of course, image size, if I say okay, the picture will go bigger or smaller. But you can now do math in different tabs and areas like the image size and the canvas size for easy mathematical calculations inside of Photoshop. All right, this one's small, but if you have a small screen, this can really help you. I'm going to rename this layer to Hello. This is a long description of a layer. I haven't spelled layer wrong. Layer, you know what? I'm going to keep it misspelled. Anyways, notice how this little ... truncates the actual name. But notice now when I roll my mouse over it, it now shows the entire length, including my misspelling of the word layer, because I'm just going to go with that as these recordings just happen. But the cool thing is that it allows you to see the full length of description of a longer layer name. This wasn't available in the previous versions. It's minimal, but I still think it's important because you might have a small screen whereby you can't read the layer too well. So by holding your mouse over it, it will show you the longer name of the layer name. One also piece of the type tool which I didn't mention earlier, and it's a little bit, well, it's just small, I didn't even notice it before. If I hit T for type and click, by default, Lorem Ipsum comes up. If you're new to the phrase Lorem Ipsum, this was used as what is called Greek text or dummy text. When we lay things out for print, we never wanted to use sorta, kinda realistic wording in case the client, boss, agency had newer type. And so what we put in is the word Lorem Ipsum and a whole bunch of Greek type. By default, Photoshop now inserts the phrase Lorem Ipsum whenever you click the type key on your screen. And there's 2, and there's 3, and there's 4, and now there's 4 versions of Lorem Ipsum on my screen. So a subtle piece they also changed in Photoshop was the ability to display the UI based upon the font size in Photoshop. I'm going to go up to the Preferences and Interface. And I'm on a different size screen over here. So if you have a bigger or smaller monitor, this actually might be really important to use. So note that it says, if I roll my mouse over it, you can set the UI scaling factor. So scaling the user interface to match the font. The font size, I had small before and I re-clicked tiny and I went back in, but I'll show you the differences. If I say large, I will need to restart Photoshop. So give me 1 second while I come back. And now, as you can see, the different tools got larger on the screen. Once again, under Preferences and Interface, you can now scale the different tools so you can see them bigger or smaller. This helps me on different size screens. So actually I utilize this quite a bit as I have a 27-inch 4K monitor and I also have my 13-inch MacBook Pro. So actually I adjust this, I make larger size fonts on my 27-inch as it's so big, and then I also go back down to small and or tiny on the MacBook Pro when I'm traveling. So this, while it is small, no pun intended, it actually is a really cool new feature in Photoshop, the Scale UI to Font. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch all of these new features in Photoshop. I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot to digest, but I appreciate you sticking through the entire video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, well, hit the thumbs down button. I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel as I'm going to have multiple videos about Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, and Animate in the coming weeks. So if you are a creative professional or a small business owner, this channel is for you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comments section. Have a great day.